Hello everyone, welcome back to our regular viewers. And yeah, I skipped last week, so it's a little bit strange, but we're back with our Afterlight. We're back to our Wednesday live streams, and yeah, today we're going to be working on a master study, which is the first of its topics. And today I am controversially, perhaps, working on it digitally, and I'm not doing it the traditional method. I chose to do it this way because I felt like it would be kind of more accommodating if it's done digitally, because I have all of the digital tools to try and actually make this into a master study. But in my heart, I know that a master study would prefer to be done traditionally. But yeah, in this case, I'm a bit tuckered out from the convention I just did. I just came back from Providence, and my place is a bit of a mess. And I'm also extremely tired. I think it's just the post-con work that I've been doing has sort of caught up to me now that the event itself is over, and I'm extremely exhausted. And it's not like I've also been taking a break these last few days since I got back either. I've been kind of doing some house chores, and today I walked around in extremely hot weather, and I'm actually extremely sunburned unintentionally. It was very, it was unplanned, not like when you go to the beach. And yeah, I just took a nap and I just woke up and I'm really, really tired. So yeah, that's my excuse for doing this digitally. But you can choose to do this traditionally. You can choose to do this in whatever medium you desire. And it's a little bit funky, I know, seeing the two reference photos on the screen, because I've got the reference picture on my iPad, and then you've got your reference picture there on the screen, so there's some overlap a little bit. But yeah, I'm just gonna get started. I think I'm gonna actually, to get in a better mindset, I'm gonna actually make this canvas size more accurate to how the picture is. But yeah, welcome everyone. Welcome back to the stream. I'm going to work on tinker with this for a little bit. It's been a while since I've done something digitally. I do a lot of my planning, my art planning on my iPad. So a lot of my art here is actually my like brainstorming and not really so much the final product. So it's a little bit strange getting into this. So I'm thinking that I will try with some of the pencils. Let's see. Maybe do like a little sketch. Start on one end. Yeah, I really love this painting of sort of the behind the scenes planning for Beauty and not Beauty and the Beast. That's not a Freudian slip, but a psychological slip of my favorite Disney movie. But yeah, it's quite nice seeing the Sleeping Beauty aesthetic come through in this reference picture. So yeah, I'm gonna just, what I really like is how the juxtaposition between sort of the clean blocks, the clean architecture, it's got these nice straight lines, this flat color, this sort of semblance between 2D and almost 3D look to it. Like it's flat, but it's still coming off the page, and there's some dimensionality to it. But what I really love is how different the trees are, like how different the foliage looks in comparison to the line work for the buildings. It just looks very different, and there's just something very pleasing about seeing it all together like that. But yeah, feel free to follow along and get into the spirit of drawing a master's study, which is technically defined by the idea that you are trying to replicate the artistic techniques used for famous paintings, drawings, and that way it gives you an idea of how the artist, someone typically more proficient in technique and skill and has had a very long career, and how they use those methods. I kind of know that digitally I could cheat by doing like, oh, like there's a straight line here, I could just do a straight line. No, I'm just going to try to use my natural hand movement as much as possible to capture shapes, rather than using my line tool and tools that will expedite this. There's not a lot of like outline lines happening in this picture. There's not a lot of, there's like these blocks of color next to each other and not so much lines or line work happening. Yeah, so if I sound like really tired, it's because I'm back home. I'm recovering after about, well, some of you who've been following my streams know that the last few weeks have been extremely busy and stressful, and I'm finally home and focusing on sort of what's going to happen next. But what I really need is just a few days to just like sleep an adequate amount. This is such a fun image though. It just looks like a big like puzzle piece of an image. I'm thinking I'll do like a pencil outline first and then go back with on a new layer, cover it with a solid pen for the colors. And that way I kind of know what direction. Yeah, welcome everyone, welcome. If you were joining in, please go ahead and let me know what mediums you're working on. I would love to know if anyone else is doing this master study with me. And I'm gonna also try and minimize how many times I can like undo something as well. Like I don't want to keep, because that's what happens when I draw, is that I like to like undo things, use the features of Procreate, which is like the benefits of drawing digitally, but I'm going to try and minimize how reliant I am, just because I do feel a little bit bad that I'm doing this digitally. Yeah, I really like master studies. I remember doing one at the Metropolitan Museum of Art here in New York City, all the way back when I was in college. It was for an art history class. I kind of forget the context of why I was doing it. I think we were supposed to like do a presentation on a famous artist during a certain art movement. And then I think we were supposed to go to the museum and do a master's study of their work in addition. Which is interesting because that's usually not something you would do for an art history class. It's more of an art technique class. But that's, I remember the last time I did like a proper master study. I'm also going to try and eyeball, instead of like color matching by using the eyedropper tool, I'm actually going to try and match the color just like through using my eyeball, my eye. This first part of laying down the groundwork is very slow, but I want to get to the detail parts very much so. It's like so strange because I'm in the middle of applying for markets, and the Halloween markets have begun to crop up, and I'm kind of like already, my brain has already moved on to Halloween spooky stuff. I mean, it's like it's always there to a degree, but now that we're approaching it more and more and people are sort of acknowledging it, like, it does feel like it's pretty much here for me. Okay, the one thing I will do is actually shrink this, because to scale I'm drawing this quite a bit larger than the actual image. There we go. Forget that my eraser is so much bigger. But yeah, I just came back from Providence. I did the Necronomicon convention up there. It was great. Really, like, one of those sort of experiences that sort of validate that what you're doing might be the right choice. Because I've done lots of markets and I've done lots of conventions. In fact, I think the one I just did, the Necronomicon, is actually my 20th market that I've done since I started working as a working artist. And yeah, it was like one of those markets where, oh, I can see myself like actually doing this full time. And I've had successful markets before, but not like to the level that this was. And I know that like it's going to be difficult for me to match that in every market. So I do have meted out expectation. But at the same time, I also prepped a lot of work for this market. So it kind of was like, oh, all that like experimental stuff that you were working on panned out. So I had a much more successful time with it. I had some of my friends who've been like with me for a really long time, like they've seen my artistic journey. They were really excited about my new portfolio work when I showed them, because we went up to Providence together. And they were very, very kindly telling me that this new work seems like I'm enjoying myself and I'm kind of in a better direction for where I want to go. Okay, I've got kind of like the rough bones of this going on here. I can tackle some of the houses now. I saw that this painting, this Sleeping Beauty countryside painting, the original is being sold, I believe. And I can't remember exactly how much it was, but I think it was like maybe $6,000 or something. Something crazy, like a really crazy amount. But I think it was like the original painting. And if I had that kind of money, it'd be definitely something I would love to buy. I actually really enjoy, even though my favorite Disney movie growing up was Beauty and the Beast, I really love the design and aesthetics of Sleeping Beauty. I think the way that they designed Sleeping Beauty is incredible. I like this mixture, this sort of jumble of textures. It's very simplified, but there's a lot of detail elsewhere, which is really fun. So, in the movie, obviously, the premise, if you know the movie, is that Sleeping Beauty is cursed by an evil fairy Maleficent, who says that she will prick her finger on a spinning wheel and die. And as a child, I guess the concept of a spinning wheel never really like processed fully for me. Like it's like a, like it was like something that was sort of a plot device. So it never really registered that like spinning wheels are like a legitimate old-timey, like ancient form of spinning together fibers to make yarn. I mean, it's like also used in Rumpelstiltskin as well, where she's spinning hay into gold, I believe. And yeah, so like my little like child brain didn't really process that as like a thing that people and adults have used for a really long time and was an extremely important, it was like an extremely important tool to basically put together these fibers until I went to to Massachusetts with my friend, where we went to that sheep festival, that fiber festival. And she is someone who uses roving to spin yarn. So she uses a drop spindle, and one of the tools that she would really like to invest in is an actual spinning wheel. And I'm like, oh, right, those things that look like in medieval movies, those things that look like they belong in medieval movies. I just like I did not like conceptualize it as like a thing until I realized that, oh yeah, there's like actual thriving groups of fiber artists who still use it to this day. And my hair is quite an investment, quite an expensive investment. It's like, oh, I only ever knew about it because of the fact that Sleeping Beauty was cursed using it. Yeah, because everything is so like mechanized and machine-like nowadays that the idea of modern society and women of modern times and textile artists and fiber artists of modern times still put like spinning wheels to good use. That and for some reason I had a harder time conceptualizing a spinning wheel as a modern tool more than like a loom, like a weaving loom. I'm not much of a spinner myself. I like wool roving because I like to do felting with it. I don't really do it for spinning like my friend does. So I really like felting with raw roving wool. So we're doing a very general outline, and then I kind of want to like add, once I get most of these like houses down, I do want to work on coloring them so it's not just like a vague outline, a shadowy outline. I'm like, this is a master's study, it doesn't do any of the coloring. Yeah, but I'm like so excited for fall. The heat wave here has been pretty intolerable the last few weeks. I just want the heat wave to be done. My building has a lot of other residential buildings surrounding it. And this morning when I was heading out, one of the buildings across from mine, they have trees on their terrace and on their roof. And I could see that one of the trees was already bright red. And I was like, oh, that tree's already celebrating autumn season. So it's like all these little signs telling me that soon summer will be over. And I'm very sorry to all you summer people, but it is not my season. Summer is a bit too hard for me. I much prefer like temperate, so when we're transitioning from winter to spring is like, yeah, I just like the transition seasons. I like spring and I like fall. I like fall much better though. Alright, this looks like a big pencil that I'm drawing. Does anyone else online have a favorite season? Because everyone else is also like a big Halloween head. I'm trying to figure out like how I can do these trees. It's like a lot of details here and there. I never really noticed before. Like the top of these roofs have very decorative ironwork drawn on. I feel like maybe my scale is like a bit too large. I feel like either the walls are too not accommodating enough, or I'm gonna move these. Move this a little bit to the side. I haven't watched much stuff lately because it's been so busy, but I did recently really get into watching Ted Lasso. It's on Apple TV. And it made me cry several times. It's a very emotional show. It's very silly. It's definitely a comedy, but there were some moments where it made me cry. Something's like not lining up here. Maybe these are like these houses are too big. Let's see if I can like make them slightly smaller. I've had this like tiny fan on the entirety of summer. This poor little fan just chugging away. It was like, oh yeah, June. It was on in June, and then, but it was like very briefly on, and now it's like on all the time with August. Just feel bad for my little fan. been through a lot this summer. Something here is like crowding the artwork. It's not like, doesn't look right to me. Alright, maybe it's just something I'll have to commit to. I really do want to get through these houses at least. There's like a little grainy like brush happening here that I'll have to remember to try and replicate. Some of the shading though is like very different from each other. Like there's like a grainy brush here, and then there's like a little bit of this like cross-hatching sort of effect over here. Yeah, I'm going to be trying to planning to watch Over the Garden Wall. It was pretty phenomenal because the market I just did, I had some Over the Garden Wall artwork, and so many people recognized it. So many people were excited to see it. It was pretty funny when a couple people came up and they were like, "Wait, isn't that like Over the Garden Wall stuff?" Yes, those are my peoples. And it's like kind of time for me to properly watch it soon, which I'm very excited about. That for me is like the ringing of the bell of autumn approaching, autumn arriving. I'm actually shocked at how sunburned I am. Because, like, I just went out to do chores. Like, I went out to do some basic stuff. It's totally unplanned. also decided that when I was at the convention this past weekend, I was just kind of throwing some ideas around, and my friend and I are collaborating to make some zines together, which is exciting. Zines are something that I've been wanting to do for a while, and we're finally planning to meet to do zines together, which will be really fun and exciting. So zines are on the horizon, but I'm finally moving forward with learning bookbinding properly. So bookbinding has been kind of got the trifecta, the triangle of things I wanted to learn. And printmaking I've really gotten into this year. Fiber arts is something that I continue to be interested in, and that's been around since before I opened my business. So this year I've been combining the two and experimenting with the two a lot, which was really fun and exciting and led to some exciting portfolio work. But the third sort of corner of the triangle that I've been meaning to properly learn is bookbinding, and that's always been sort of always been a bit intimidated by it because it seems very technical. But I think I finally have the headspace and the sort of time to properly learn it and work with it and experiment with it now that I've kind of gotten a rhythm to my other practices happening. So those are sort of the three areas that I'm hoping to work on quite a bit this year and next year. But yeah, once I wanted to learn bookbinding because one, there's some journals and sketchbooks that I wanted to customize for myself. So learning the practice is pretty important to me. For instance, I really want to bookbind my own sticker book. So that's been something that I've been wanting to do for quite a while. And then the sort of brainstorming session I had while I was at the convention was that I would try to bookbind a series of stories that I grew up with. So some of it's most of it's childhood stories, but there's definitely a series where I just want to kind of write and do small illustrations for scary ghost stories I grew up with, which I thought would be really cool to add so that people can read these stories. And yeah, there's some creepy ones out there that I've read. Some of it might be familiar, some of it might not be. Some of it was told to me orally, so it's really fun to as someone who's had books and read books for such a long, pretty much their entire lives, the idea of bookbinding is kind of akin to, I don't know, just someone who really loves wine and the practice of producing fruit-based juices and things, finally kind of owning their own orchard and learning how to make it on their own. I don't know, that's a terrible example, but it's the idea of something where it's just the foundational practices of something that you really love and that you grew up with becoming possible. So maybe that's why I kind of left bookbinding off for such a long time, because it's sort of there's a sacredness to it. But I've grown up reading for such a long period of my life. I really love books. I collect many, many books and sketchbooks. I have loads of just blank notebooks that I've been collecting for many years. I really should stop buying and just start using at this point. But yeah, I've added bookbinding to my list of skills that I would like to work on and properly practice. And no better reason than to start binding stories I grew up with. So I would like to do a series on scary stories, ghost stories, horror stories, either like things that I've heard or things that or like original ideas. I would like the idea of like, not really self-publishing, but just like making a series of like books that I had some original concepts for. But yeah, to bookbind a series of books and to create sort of a library of things that people can read and really become like exposed to. I feel like I'm getting very distracted by this drawing, and that's why I'm floundering with my words. But I also want to do a series where I'm kind of sharing the Korean folktales I grew up with as well. A lot of stories, Korean folktale stories that I grew up with reading or hearing from family members would be really fun. But yeah, it's been a lot of stuff that I have been just practicing, getting to know myself better as an artist. I feel like I said, I did a lot of experimenting with the stuff I was bringing to my last convention, and the fact that it had such a good response just kind of has propelled me to be a lot more confident in my artistic decision making. So I am quite excited to try some new things and see how they go. 'Cause it's like kind of that tipping point where there are moments where I feel like I'm making stuff and it's highly experimental and no idea how it's gonna go. And sometimes you do well and sometimes you don't. It's fine either way, because at least you've like tried something new, tried something different. And a lot of times I felt like a lot of my creative risk taking was sort of like a hit or miss. But now I think I've kind of hit a point where I've become a lot more confident in my voice, and it's resonating better with other people. It's like resonating better with my personal circle of friends, and it's resonating better at a marketing level. And there's a lot of things that I want to improve on, but it's sort of also that point of where, okay, I think my skill level is actually matching my vision now. Because that was always the frustrating part, was like sometimes you have these really great ideas, but technique is still something that you are learning and improving on. And it's not to say that I'm flawless in my technique so much. It's actually kind of like I'm still struggling to get certain outcomes to where I want it to be. But it's hit a sort of point of where it's less of an issue, because it used to be more of an issue that like, oh, like, you know, I have all these really great ideas, but I have no idea like how to go about them to execute them properly, to really indicate this is like what I envisioned. And a lot of that experimenting can be really off-putting otherwise. But this time around, it feels like I was properly able to really take some risks in a way that was still authentic to my voice and authentic to the idea of what I wanted to do. And I think it's always like a little bit validating when people respond really well to your work. And I think, yeah, it's like hit a point where as a working artist, sort of like what you're doing is resonating and appeals to a group of people that you yourself are like part of, like your community. So yeah, it's an exciting time, definitely, to have hit that point. And now it's just like, okay, how do I move forward from here? And it's easier to know what next to do. I feel like I was able to spend, like, as soon as I got back, sometimes you come back from a market and you don't do very well, and you're just constantly like, okay, but what if I were to try this? What if I were to try that? And it's like, how do I know that this isn't going to like affect me in future markets? And how do I know that this is going to do well at other markets? And it's a bit more of like, it's like for anyone who's very risk averse, this is very scary, because it's like, oh, what if it happens again? And I'm sure, even though I'm coming off of like a very successful market, that there will be a point where maybe I will do a market where the success isn't like matched. And that's okay, there's always that risk, and especially in this economy. But when you piggyback off of the momentum that you have, where things like turned out really well, and I will say, like, with my chest, that 𝔸𝕗𝕘𝕙𝕃 was like blew all the other markets I've ever done out of the water. And this is my 20th market. I've done markets since 2024, and none of them like had this level of success for me, and it was such a good learning experience. And I got to talk to a lot of people who really seemed to appreciate the effort that went into the work I had done. So it was very, like, I don't know, it was just so nice to talk to people about art, and to talk to people who really found it to be something that was really cool to them. And yeah, I think at the end of the day, we just hope that our artwork like sort of hits people in a way that they appreciate and find incredibly emotional, and is a reflection of some. It's like it could be something as intense as like something that resonates with them at their core, or it could just be something that they think looks really cool. Like but yeah, I kind of had people all across tell me and talk to me about my artwork, and they had really positive things to say. And yeah, it was, sometimes you have markets where you sometimes get, a certain demographic of people that seem to struggle with the amount of work you put into something. But in this case, like, it was nothing but really big love from everyone. And yeah, it was simultaneously both like financially rewarding and also very emotionally rewarding, which was really great. And I really appreciate like everyone that's I talked to and got a chance to talk to about their work as well. It's one of those conventions where I'm hoping to go back with a colleague and have them help me with my booth, so that I can actually like properly go around and look at what other people are doing, because it was just me, and these market days were long. They were like 10 hours, I'd say. 10 hours for 3 days, almost 10 hours for 2 days, and then the third day was much shorter. But yeah, it just was like a very long time for me to just like stand there on my own. So I would like to go back with a friend. Oh, there's an ambulance. Oh no, I think that's a fire truck. Oh no, I think that's an ambulance. Alright, I'm gonna finish this section here, and then we're gonna go into coloring. Sorry if I'm just a tiny bit sluggish today. It's, like I said, it's been a long week. And yeah, I'm just like mentally, I'm just trying to get myself back into the groove. But yeah, like when you do a market and you're riding the momentum of the market, it's a lot easier to know kind of what direction you want to go in and what you want to try now, because you've had this experience where people seem to like what you experimented with. So now you can kind of project forward where you want to go with more confidence. So that was really important to me. That was a bit of a confidence booster after many years of trying things and finding like, okay, this isn't working, or I've tried this. I've had a whole brand change almost. So I think the brand change helped a lot. I think the brand, sort of my vision of where I wanted my business to go, has changed a bit. And I think it's more sustainable to me as a person and more authentic to me as an artist. And I think that's what caused people to sort of see like what I do with a bit more enthusiasm, because it's more like what I'm hoping to achieve in the long run. So yeah, I do feel like having a more like confident voice artistically helps a lot. It felt less like in the beginning of when I started my creative business, it still felt like maybe perhaps I was treating it still kind of with like the sense of like, this is a hobby. Like I had a very small hobby voice. It felt like I had not a very confident voice in what I wanted to do. There was confidence in like what I liked, but there wasn't really confidence in what I wanted to like project into the world. And I think that sort of dithering of like what I want to do professionally doesn't have the strongest voice. At least for me personally. Like I know there's different ways to approach your artwork. It's not the same for everyone. But yeah, for me, I think like I was a lot less confident advocating for myself and for my work when it was just sort of something that I saw as like, oh, I'm just trying things, or this is just something that I liked. I made this because I just liked it in the moment, and there wasn't really like a message or a thing that I was hoping to do. And sometimes that's, sometimes it's fine to just make art where you just make what you like. I don't think there's anything wrong with that approach. But when it's coupled with the idea that like, oh, I'm just sort of a beginner artist, I'm sort of a hobby artist, I'm still learning things, it really detracts from sort of the power of what you've already accomplished. And I think that's what was really affecting me. But now that I kind of have a very strong idea of who I am as a person and what I want my art to be, that sort of storytelling about yourself comes across in your art a lot stronger. And I think people really respond to that more. And I think that's what's given me sort of a lot better perspective on the direction my art is going, because it's a lot less like it used to be, where I was like, oh, I made it because I like this. I was still learning how to sew, blah, blah, blah. Like this is like a very beginner thing that I did where I was still learning. And now I'm just like, I just say outright, I'm just like, yeah, I made this because of this, this, and this, these reasons. And I'm a working artist. I now tell people I'm a printmaker, I'm a fiber artist very confidently. It's less to do with like comparing myself to industry professionals, because I think that's what was also kind of affecting me in the beginning. I was like, oh, I'm not as good as artists with decades of experience or professionals. And it was very crippling to my self-confidence. But now that I've tried things, I've worked around professional artists more and seeing sort of the different personalities and the way people approach their work is so different and very confident that it really led me towards the right direction, I think. Yeah, this was like a very long learning process, and I'm still like someone who's feels like I'm a perpetual student, but not in a bad way. Whereas I feel like in the beginning, it felt like I was treating it like it was a bad thing. Whereas now I'm like, I'm learning, and I've done these things, and I can talk to you about the techniques and stuff, but I would like to know, how you would approach it, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's just, I don't know, just kind of opened up more confidence in who I am as an artist. And yeah, just something to really practice and learn about yourself. I realized that the doors for some of these arches are like a little wonky. They're like not perfect arches, which gives them a very nice sort of charm. Speaking of horror stories and this Halloween season coming up, one of my favorite artists, and I'm someone who really likes sort of cozy Halloween artistry, like things that are like in a dark room. If you're a millennial and you had a library or you had those like Scholastic newsletters, there was a book that so many people my age are familiar with called In a Dark Room, and it's a collection of short stories. I think it's like catered towards very young elementary kids. So I remember reading it in like the first grade, I believe. I think it was the first grade. I very distinctly remember I was at Heath School. Oh, no, very distinctly remember being at Lawrence School and not Heath School. And that was when I was attending first and second grade. But, sorry, this is for you Brookline people out there. If any of you lived in Massachusetts. But yeah, I remember reading In a Dark Room. That's the series that had the story of the Green Ribbon. The Green Ribbon was a huge impact for me. So, but at the same time, the Dark Room was like so impactful. It was a book I read all the time. Jenny from the Green Ribbon was like a role model for me. But I know that at the same age group was also very much exposed to Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, which had those like really messed up illustrations, and it was really scary. Had those really scary illustrations. I remember I opened one of those books and saw some of the pictures and refused to ever read it. In fact, I still haven't read it. I feel like I should just go to a bookstore and just like properly read it now that I'm an adult now. But yeah, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark was too scary for me. Those illustrations were way too scary. But the illustrations in a Dark Room were like perfect. There was also like a small book that my dad had gotten me, and I think it was called True Ghost Stories, but it was like very small and thick, and it was a square-shaped book, and it was supposed to be like, oh, true stories, true scary stories. But I remember the illustrations in those looked kind of like carvings, like wood carvings. And there was a lot of like really strong line work happening. Sorry, I'm noticing that I'm getting a Discord notification, but I'm not seeing any Discord action when I go on my phone. So if someone is in our Discord talking, I'm very sorry, but for some reason my phone is not registering any new messages. Maybe it's something else. But yeah, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark was too scary. The illustrations were too scary. But as I think it was like in college, either college or maybe like late high school. No, I think it was college. I think it was early college. I found an illustrator online who did horror stories, and her name is 𝔸𝕣𝕥 𝔸𝕗𝕥. She wrote something Woods. Oh, I'm forgetting it. But it was also an illustrated book with a collection of scary stories. I think they were all original stories. And she had a blog, and one of the stories titles was called A Face All Red. And I remember, like, it was one of those stories that was very subtle. It was not very scary. It was very unnerving. And her use of illustrative techniques to convey how unnerving it was so good. I remember it was like one of my favorite comics to read online, and now it's in book form. It was published. So 𝔸𝕣𝕥 𝔸𝕗𝕥, definitely someone to look for if you're into sort of that in-between horror illustration of In the Dark Dark Room and Scary Stories. It's not as scary as Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, but there's some images that are very, very, like, her use of how to make things look shocking and scary and unnerving is really good. It's sort of more insidious, I feel like, her artistic style, because it's so brightly colored that it's sort of, when it changes, it's very jarring. So yeah, that's like a really good artist to follow. So sorry, I'm very briefly going to open up my Discord because this is bothering me. I am going to leave it off to the side here. Oh, okay. Alright, so it wasn't our live stream. There was notification for another stream. Or, sorry, for another Discord channel. Alright, so I've done quite a bit of the structures here. I'm going to try and do some color matching now. This is actually even good. Yeah, 𝔸𝕑𝕥 𝔸𝕗𝕥, definitely one of my favorite illustrators slash writers for that genre of very, like, subtly scary stories. There's also a comic book I read recently where, oh my god, my brain is just not working today, but it was called, oh god, this is gonna really bother me. I think it's called, wait, I'm gonna step away just so I can go look at the title. Give me 1 second. Have returned. It's called Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees, and it is a one-shot story comic, and it is literally like one of the most beautifully illustrated series ever, and it's all watercolor, I believe. Yeah, it's all watercolor, and it's a very, like, disturbing murder story. It's just like it's just so off-putting in the beginning because you know, watercolor is just sort of one of those mediums that looks very gentle. It looks very nature. It's like preferred to like nature and sort of isn't as intense. And it's so funny because the comic actually uses watercolor in that way, where it's all very like beautiful and washed out, and there isn't like heavy line work or heavy contrast in colors. Like there's nothing bright or neon-y, and there's nothing super dark and saturated. It's very much like, you can tell it's like very delicate watercolor, and it's still like a story that's very violent. It's very violent. It's very, I wouldn't say it's scary. I wouldn't say it's like horror. It's more like a thriller, I would say, if we were to classify it. But it's really good, and the art is amazing. Yeah, in the tree, under the trees where nobody sees. While I was looking at that book, I also have one of Emily Carroll's books, and it is, like, she came out with her collection of short stories. It was like her first book, I believe, but I remember reading one of those stories on her blog. But she also has multiple, I think she's had multiple books since then, and one of them that I have right now is called A Guest in the House, and it's really good. This might be a little bit too... I feel like it's brighter. Remember, I'm trying to capture this visually rather than like using the teardropper tool. I think this is good. Might even be lighter than that, actually. Yeah, so I have this like screen texture thing. It's like a screen protector, but also, it's also like it's supposed to simulate a paper surface, and it has certainly like gotten damaged because I have a fine nib on my little like Apple Pencil, and it's the fine nib is definitely like too sharp for it. Is there like a movie that everyone finds the most aesthetically pleasing out of the Disney movies? Like I said, I feel like Sleeping Beauty is up there for me aesthetically. I think for me it is the most beautiful. Like aesthetic. It just felt so much like a fairy tale. It just felt so very much like a fairy tale. Like it just felt like it should. This is like clearly a story, a fantastical story, and it matches the sort of time period as well, like that sort of medieval period. So I feel like they had a lot of influence from the medieval style of art to replicate in this sense. So that was like so pleasing to the eye for me. And that transition of Maleficent becoming a dragon was so cool. Yeah, I really like that style. I think Sleeping Beauty for me is like top tier artistic style, but I really love that time period of movies, Disney movies that fall under the umbrella of like The Sword in the Stone, Robin Hood, and Aristocats. Like it was all three of those have sort of a very like the same theme across all of them visually. And I know that some of the scenes are also like basically copy and pasted. Like some of the characters dancing in Robin Hood are the exact same movements as the characters dancing in Aristocats. But all of them have the same sort of that scratchy, like pencil-y look to them, which I really love. I really miss that. I really miss that visual look to them. Ooh, that is very red. Let's see if we can get that a little more energy. Yeah, I feel like I really love that style of art in Disney movies, and it's like something's happened to that style and it doesn't really happen anymore, and it makes me really sad. Everything is just so CGI and 3D-ish. I don't know. It just feels very blah to me. It just feels... I wish every movie that came out had its own distinct style, had its own distinct artistic look to them that wasn't just that sort of homogenized 3D capture looking thing. Like when it first came out, it was revolutionary, and now like all these movie series are trying to capture it. You know, I would have loved to see Frozen, because I feel like Frozen is such a fun story. It's got so many things going for it, and I really wish artistically it was in that older style of animation that was all hand-drawn. And because like one of my favorite animated movies is Prince of Egypt from DreamWorks. So visually stunning. Like if I were an animator trying to make it, that would literally be my Bible. Like the Prince of Egypt is like the reference material that I would use to sort of, I feel like it just visually captured exactly what it needed to do to like do this story of gigantic proportions in a way that was like respectful and just visually stunning. And yeah, I feel like if someone could somehow transfer the level of animated work that went into Prince of Egypt and did that for Frozen, oh my god, I would have been like all the little girls watching Frozen hundreds of times in theaters. Like that would have been me going into the theater to just like study it and just like really like falling in love with the style of it. I would have freaking adored that. It would have been so good. Now all the characters look the same. Like Anna and Elsa like are literally just the same face, copy and pasted. It's the same face. It's like, why? Why can't we have different faces, different looks, different animation styles? I don't know. I just wish that it was all a little bit different. Like there was some variety. At least more so than before. thank you for listening to my rant about how disappointing Disney animations have become. God, but wouldn't it be so amazing to have seen like the level of watercolor and graphical overhaul that like when the plagues hit Egypt and when Moses split the sea, like to see that level of animation and traditional mediums be put into like Elsa's ice powers. Like, can you imagine how glorious that would be? Could you just imagine it though? If you haven't seen Prince of Egypt, please, please, please watch it. It's like, it was just so well done. And it's not because I'm like trying to get you to watch a biblical movie. But it very much is one of those movies that handles a story from the Bible with such grace. It was very much like done in a way that is appealing to anyone watching it. It was ethnically also appropriate and paid homage, I think, very gently to the idea of the Old Testament, and it just felt like such a ambitious and respectful and wonderfully, beautifully executed project. Just so good. It was just such an amazing thing. And this is someone who genuinely does not enjoy going to church, like someone who actively avoids any church environment or any sort of connotations of the Bible or This is taking a lot longer than I thought. It's already an hour and 20 minutes in. I might work on this for another like half hour and I'll try and get as far ahead as possible. But I also don't want this to be like a very long stream of me just like coloring things in. But I will try to speed things up so that I can at least see some of these buildings. I watched Ted Lasso, which I recommend if you have Apple TV. My partner, while I was away, watched the new Avatar movie, which I would also like to see. Probably gonna hop on to the streaming platform tonight and try to watch it. He also watched the Michael Jackson movie, which I also want to see. He's been watching all the movies that I've been wanting to watch. We watched Obsession not too long ago together. We're waiting for The Odyssey to come out so we can stream it. You know what? If I could, I should just like watch Sword in the Stone again. God, that was a good movie. Sword in the Stone is so good. Oh, so visually appealing. Did anyone read The Dark is Rising book series? It's a very it's a children's book series, and it was very much in my wheelhouse. I remember reading it in middle school, and it is like one of the defining fantasy series for me as a kid. I include that within my library of influence, along with Lord of the Rings and Redwall by Brian Jacques. So sad. During one of our moves, our family moves, I had the entire Redwall series. I had all the books, And for some reason, I only have 2 now. They somehow got lost in the moves that we've had, in the near constant moving that we've done. But yeah, The Dark is Rising is also sort of a fantasy for children with a very strong root in Arthurian myth and legend. So it's got that going for it. Alright, this is like way too big, so I'm gonna trim it down. Yeah, it's got its roots in, there's 5 books in the series. The first is, I think it's called The Stone and the Sea, but it's the second book that's like most people are aware of because it's the titular series name. It's called The Dark is Rising. Dark is that, and then there's like 3 other books after that. They won like multiple awards too, and I remember that it was such a good series. I felt like a lot of these books I read as a kid had such a strong influence on me, like in developing like sort of my moral code and my understanding of morality. There's a lot of stuff that happened in these books, in these like sort of heavier fantasy books, where it's really strong in storytelling from a child's perspective of like how to deal with responsibility and how to deal with helping other people. And it was so fundamental to like my understanding of how my own moral code is. And I feel like even though I grew up with a lot of Harry Potter exposure, like obviously a lot of us grew up with a lot of Harry Potter influence on our ideas and such in our lives, but I think for me the Dark is Rising series was like more pivotal and more influential for me in developing my own moral understanding of myself. It felt very much like it was more nuanced. It was less to do with absolute good versus absolute dark. You know, it was not all good versus all evil. It was very much more subtle in its approach. And I think that for me was sort of pivotal in how I understood my own morality. So, like an example is that there are forces that the protagonist is fighting, and obviously they're the dark because the series name is called The Dark is Rising, and these entities that represent the dark, you know, you would think it's very like black and white, but it was more that these forces represented less about that evilness, darkness, and things with bad intentions, and more that they were very much like aggressive in wanting the world to subsume to their idea, if you know what I mean. Like they never like when you think of like bad actors and you think of villains and you think of evil beings, like, you know, they're doing actively terrible stuff, and you can like kind of point to corruption, you can point to these entities, these villainous characters actively harming people. And it's not to say that the villains in the Dark is Rising series aren't hurting people, but it was more like a fighting of ideologies it was more like these beings that represent a sort of totalitarian viewpoint. Like they wanted everyone to just, it was like a combat between someone controlling you and taking away your sense of autonomy, as opposed to someone who's just like, I don't know, a serial killer. And what was interesting to me was that the primary antagonist that represented the dark was the Black Rider. There was a dark rider. There was someone who was always dressed in black, rode a black horse, blah, blah, blah. It was very easy to see him. And I remember the books would describe him as like, I remember that it was like very strange because it described him as being handsome. Like it described him as being handsome, but there was like something wrong with him, in the way that it was sort of like, okay, but like there's something handsome about this face, but it's also simultaneously unnerving. That was the sort of description that I kind of remember reading as a kid. And that was such a like strange way to introduce a villain. And he was the Black Rider, or the Dark Rider, I forget which one. I think it was Black, I think he was called the Black Rider. But towards the end of the series, they introduce another rider that's also on the side of the dark, and it was the White Rider. And I remember there was a line in one of the books where the children, the protagonists, encounter the forces of the dark, and they see a White Rider riding amongst everyone else. And I remember like one of the characters asks sort of like their version of Gandalf or Merlin, like someone who's like their wise man, about why there was a White Rider amongst the dark. And I remember, and I'm truncating this because I don't remember exactly what he said, but along the lines of like essentially that the extreme viewpoints of both the dark and the light is actually bad. Like they're both like bad things. Like you would think, oh, like the opposite to the dark is the light side. In this case, it's not. It's not like Star Wars. It's like very much it's both, they were representing extremism on both sides, essentially. It was meant to represent the fact that like a person should feel morally compelled when they're sort of like understanding and flexible and open-minded. But these two riders represented forces of darkness because their method of thought, like I said, is totalitarian, it's extremist. And they represent the fact that, like, when you're on either end of the spectrum, it's, like, very bad. And I thought that was such a, like, weird, at the time, very weird way of describing the forces of darkness. But it's sort of, like, shaped as an adult, with a better understanding of the world and myself. It felt very much like it felt very much like either side is not healthy. And it's because, and this is I'm seeing a lot of people say this online too, is like binary thinking is essentially harmful. Binary thinking of you versus them, 1v1, is inherently harmful to any sort of productive critical thinking, and is detrimental to having flexibility of thought and the idea that we as people have brains that have neuroplasticity, which means that you are subject to your brain learning new things, adapting new skills, understanding other people's viewpoints, empathy. Those are all like things that require your brain and your emotional regulation to be highly attuned towards. And that means that you have to have open-mindedness, and you have to have an understanding of yourself that you can understand others emphatically if you aren't in this binary way of thinking. And I think that's what this book very much planted a seed in my mind very early on, was the idea that white is not inherently opposite to black or to darkness. The light is not inherently good in relation to darkness. It's like both are trying to influence you in a way that sees the other as bad. And this sort of black and white thinking is actually very harmful. So I think, and someone who's read this series, like if anyone who watches this VOD is like remembers reading this series and has a very different like understanding of it, or remembers things differently, please like feel free to leave a comment. I'm actually trying to find a way to get the books again so I can read them again properly. But I remember I read that at a very young age, and it was very influential. And that's what I feel like kids need nowadays is to read a book, and you never know at what age it will influence them. But it is absolutely the case that what you read has such a major impact on you as a person. And perhaps like that explains why, you know, the idea that books are dangerous, books change the world is usually sort of the first to go in any sort of dystopian society or dystopian characterization, is because, yeah, I remember reading a lot about this, and having something like that like influence me at such a young age is absolutely something that I think everyone should be exposed to. Everyone should have a chance to read as many books as they can and let it influence who they are and shape who they are as a person. Because books really, truly, like, they tell you so much about the world, and you just, I feel like as a human who thinks like they're connected to everyone because of the internet and the fact that everything is international now and global expression is surrounding us everywhere, there's still something extremely intimate and very powerful about reading the words that belong to someone else and having their ideas truly like leave you with the impression that you've just spoken to someone very intimately about their thoughts and who they are as a person. And I think books do that the best. And I think they force your brain to do a level of thinking and require like your synapses to develop so differently, and also encourages you to step into the mind of someone else and have it have such a powerful effect on you. Sorry, this ended up being like a very long speech, and now I'm like very far behind on this. We are far behind on this drive. But yeah, if you get a chance, I mean, as an adult, I'm like sort of tapping into my inner child a lot lately and reading a lot of books that I read in my childhood. Like, I'm actually actively going on thrift books, and whenever I pass sort of a secondhand bookstore, I go in and I try to find my childhood books now. And I'm trying very actively to go back and read the books from my childhood more often. And I'm on the search for the Darkest Rising series right now. I'm gonna go until 7:50 today, which is another like 15 minutes. But yeah, really love that series. And I'm sorry, I'm just gonna try and replicate this like weird, you see this like brown shadow here on this gray tower? I'm gonna try and replicate that. I know I have one of these like scratchy pencils. I think I found it. I feel like I'm not finding the proper brown. Okay, that's very close. Just gonna make it a little bit bigger. Yeah, so now that I have some time to breathe and I'm back from convention prepping, although I'm prepping again very soon, there's a lot of like fun museum-y things happening in the city. There's at the Morgan Library and Museum, there's sorry, I got distracted on what pen to use. Yeah, there's a very fun like exhibition on tarot cards at the Morgan Museum and Library in the city. And the Bronx Botanical Gardens has a collaboration with Moomin right now. So a lot of their like artistic installations are Moomin based. So if you're a fan of Moomin, you should absolutely go to the Bronx Botanical Gardens, which are magnificent on their own. So yeah, those are like two museums. I also need to go up to the Met Archive. Is it the Met Archives? I think that's the name. It's the part of the Met Museum that's like, it's like further away. It's like not at the main museum. I think it's called the Archives. I'm like second guessing myself now. How do they do these trees? These trees are very fuzzy. I'm noticing that there's a lot of fuzz in that corner. Yeah, master studies, they take a long time. They take a while. Okay. I got my friends to start watching the Netflix cooking show series called Culinary Class War. It's a Korean cooking show, and it is like sort of it's a bit bonkers. It's like they had a lot of money, and it's like, if you've heard of Physical 100, which is a Korean like fitness show, it's the same team that sort of pitched for this cooking show. So it's sort of like on the scale of Physical 100, where they have loads of professional chefs come in and, sorry, one second, let me get rid of this for a second. I think I put it too high. Yeah, my friends and I, we had gone to Korea a couple years ago, and we're like constantly talking about how we want to go back, what we would do. So I got them to start watching this cooking show. Because one of the things that we want to do when we get back is just like to eat at a whole bunch of places. Make this too short. No, not enough room. Alright, I know it's a master's study. It's not looking very accurate right now, but it's so much fun to draw this though. It's like such a scritchy scratchy, like there's just a lot of natural like hand fluidity movements. Like look at this arch. It's clearly just someone in one go, in a few lines, like made it. It's like a pen on top of probably a very like laborious painting, which is pretty nerve-wracking. Yeah, but if you have not had a chance to see Culinary Class War, you should, especially if you're a big foodie. There's a lot of subtitling happening, so if you're okay with subtitles, definitely watch it. It's just like really fun. It's a really fun one. It's kind of got that sort of, it's got like a lot of memes. It's got 2 seasons, because the first season was just so popular, and yeah, it's 2 seasons worth of cooking that you can see from pretty much the top chefs operating in Korea. People who do a lot of food blogging, I know, got really into the show. A lot of the chefs that were on Culinary Class War, they like have businesses a lot of the time, and their businesses have been booming. So it's really nice to see. It's really nice to see people like who've been working hard in the food industry, like suddenly have their businesses like catapulted pretty much into the limelight. A lot of these like chefs are now pretty much celebrities. We are approaching the time check that I set for myself. I'm sorry if you've been watching this thinking I would finish the whole thing, but I mean that's the point of a master's study, is a lot of the times it's very time consuming. And that's okay. The goal was to try and render as accurately as possible. we have met that, I believe, to a degree. If you've also been like drawing this at home, please put it on the Discord. Would love to see it. Look at this squiggly window. So squiggly. I'm going to do a squiggly window. I'm going to finish that arch there, and then I think I'm going to call it a night. I'm still unpacking my things as well, so it's like my suitcase is just lying over there. I have to like go through and properly look at my inventory as well. I have to like go through my inventory, like, okay, this sold a lot. For instance, my 4 horses, if you follow me on Instagram, is a print I did at the beginning of the year, and I'm gonna say that that's probably been my most popular print. Like, I printed so many of those, and this convention I just did like almost completely wiped it out. So I kind of have to go back and look at how much I need to restock. And I actually feel like the rest of the prints I have are actually limited edition now, because one of the horse carvings I did, one of the horses, is damaged. So I actually have to recarve one of the horses, and therefore the print will now change if I were to reprint. So those any future prints I'm doing will look different. So the ones I have now in stock are the last of the last. I don't love how this like little section of this like castle-y bit up here looks a little off to me. Maybe I'm just obsessing because it's all like pixelated, so it's a little hard to be as exact. I don't know. Close enough, right? Close enough to the original. That brown streak in the middle is a little bit too dark, I'm realizing. But that's okay. I just want to add this like one window. Yeah, see, this is what master studies are supposed to teach you, is like, supposed to teach you that this artist put a lot of work into it, because trying to replicate it is so difficult. And also, like, teaches me a lot about how all these different brushes look together, because I've used a whole color palette that I usually wouldn't. I've used a whole bunch of brushes I usually wouldn't. And it just looks so different from the kind of art that I would do. But I don't know, just look at this painting. It's just so much fun. Like, I wish I had more time to work on this like nature section over here with the bushes and the ferns. This whole forest area, like, what the heck? It almost looks block printed, the way that the trees look. It just looks like so different from the flat landscape of the architecture and the buildings. And like, it's got such a limited color palette here, and it's so bright over here. It's just very, very different. But yeah, this is all I was able to do for the hour and 15 minutes I was on stream. I hope you guys have had a chance to work on it yourself and appreciate the techniques that went into making this illustration, which is one of my favorite illustrations from Sleeping Beauty. And oh my god, if I ever could have the money to afford the original, that would be incredible, but I don't think I ever will. But yeah, this is the first of the master studies. I would like to do more in the future, but I'm not quite sure which which images I would like to do, I actually kind of would like to go back to this and practice it every now and again. And if I ever finish it, I'll upload it on the Discord. Again, if you're a new viewer, a new watcher, and you're watching this VOD for the first time, I do have a Discord. It's linked down below in the description. And sometimes members of the community would upload their artwork there, which I love to see and cheer on. So if you have a Discord account and don't mind joining a new channel, absolutely do. We will welcome you with open arms. And yeah, so this is Art After Light. I'll be back next week for our last August stream, which is pretty wild actually. And yeah, our theme for next week is an About Me, which is a new topic, and we'll be drawing basically different foods that we would love to have at a feast, if we were in control of the kitchen essentially. And it's just a way for us to celebrate the different kinds of food we enjoy. But yeah, thanks for joining today's Art After Light. Feel free to follow me on my socials to see the calendars and the new topics. Obviously after next week, I'm going to be uploading the September calendar, which is pretty crazy. And yeah, thanks you guys. Thanks for joining. I'll see you next Wednesday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. And as always, leave a comment. Leave any artwork that you have on the Discord, and I'd love to see it. And I'll see you next week. Good night, you guys.